Listen to the conversation between the man and the woman and answer the questions. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Scope Charity Office. How can I help you?
Oh, hello. I'm ringing about the dragon boat race that you're asking people to take part in.
Oh, yes. We still need a few more teams. Are you interested in joining the race?
Yes, we want to enter a team, but we don't know anything about it. Could I ask you for some more information first?
Of course.
I don't even know when it's being held.
It's taking place on the 2nd of July.
Is that a Saturday?
No, it's a Sunday. It's a much more popular day and more people can take part then.
Right. And where's it being held?
At the Brighton Marina.
Oh, I'm an overseas student. Could you spell that for me?
Yes, it's Brighton Marina. That's Marina. Do you know where it is?
I'm not sure.
It's a couple of miles past the Palace Pier.
Oh, yes, I know it.
You take a right turning off the coast road, or you can cycle along the seafront.
That's good. What time does the race start?
Well, the first heats begin at 10 a.m, but you need to register half an hour before that, at 9:30, and we really recommend that you aim to be there by 9. It's a good idea to arrange a meeting place for your team.
Right. And the race is to help raise money for charity?
It is. We're asking every team member to try and raise £35 by getting friends and or relatives to sponsor them. Every crew member will receive a free tournament T-shirt if your team manages to raise £1,000 or more.
Oh, that's quite good.
Also, we're holding a raffle. Every crew member who takes part in the race this season will be entered into a free prize draw.
Oh, what's the prize?
It's pretty good. It's a holiday in Hong Kong.
Sounds great.
The man asks for more information. Look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen to their conversation and answer questions 6 to 10.
Is there anything else you need to know?
Could you just tell me a little bit more about the teams?
Well, you need to have a crew of 20 people for your dragon boat, and you then need to agree on who's going to be the team captain. That will probably be you.
Fine. I've got a group of 20 people who are interested. Do all the team members have to be a certain age?
Well, there's no age limit as such, but if you have a team member who's under 18, then they have to get their parents' permission to take part.
Yes, that makes sense.
It isn't dangerous, but we do have boats that turn over in the water, and for that reason we need to insist that everyone wears a life jacket as well. And you can hire life jackets from us when your team arrives.
What do you advise people to wear?
Well, most people wear a t-shirt, shorts and trainers. I certainly wouldn't recommend that you wear jeans or boots. In fact, it's a very good idea to bring some spare clothes.
Okay.
It can get quite cold and wet if the weather's bad, and there's quite a bit of hanging around, especially if you qualify for the semi-finals or the final.
I see what you mean.
Have you got a name for your team?
Oh, not yet, no.
Well, you need to decide on one and then put it on the entrance form, which I'll send you.
Oh, okay.
So, if you'd like to give me your address, I'll be happy to send details first class.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
I'm Tim Cole, and as an experienced travel writer, I'm here to tell you not to believe everything you read in guidebooks, because following some of the recommendations they give can result in the most bizarre situations. I'll never forget the night I arrived in Sydney, for example. I'd turned up at the address of what I thought was a budget hotel given in the guidebook at 1 a.m, exhausted and looking forward to a few hours rest, but instead found myself at a comedy club, which at the time I didn't find at all funny. The problem is that too many travellers are too trusting of their guidebooks and don't bother to research even the most basic facts before they set off. Some guidebooks are only updated every couple of years, so it's no wonder many things have moved on by the time you get there. The most important thing when choosing a guidebook is to check the publication date. If it's not within the last 12 months, don't buy it. Then, the other thing to think about is who the guidebook is aimed at. If you're into the history and culture of a place, don't buy a guidebook full of information on the alternative nightlife scene. But my pet hate, and something I'm always extremely wary of, are the restaurant suggestions. So often I've turned up somewhere and the menu, price and decor bear no relation to the place I've been reading about. If they haven't already gone out of business and shut down, that is. Other things to look out for in a guidebook are the maps. These need to be detailed, but not so small you can't read them. You don't want to have to carry a magnifying glass around with you. Books that include unnecessary information are another thing I find annoying. Like photos of famous places, for example. We already know what the Eiffel Tower looks like. Why not include more background information instead? Of course, most guidebooks are also now available in a digital format, and many travellers prefer using these because they're obviously not heavy to carry, so you can download as many as you like. But I don't find them easy to use at all, because navigation is much harder than flicking through the index at the back of a book. Life's just too short, and you can never guarantee you'll have Wi-Fi access anyway. Until I can get a digital travel guide which is tailor-made for my individual trip, I'm happy to stick with the traditional form of guidebook. However, on my trip to Hawaii last summer, I experimented with a new way of getting good travel advice: Twitter tourism. Instead of using a guidebook, I decided to rely on the advice of locals and visitors alike, and let them choose what I should visit, where I should stay, and what I should eat. I didn't mind as long as their advice was based on a recent experience. It actually worked out really well, and it felt like a real adventure. Without the Twitter travel tips, I'd never have visited the ukulele festival or eaten spam sushi. One thing I'd never imagined doing, and I'm so grateful for the advice, was a 10-kilometre kayak expedition along the coast for a nighttime swim with manta rays in a huge cave. A truly magnificent sight. And my top tip for anyone visiting Hawaii.
You will hear a group of art history students going around an art gallery with their teacher. For questions 1 to 5, choose the answer A, B, C or D, which best fits according to what you hear.
Now, let's move along to the next gallery. Whose turn is it to tell us about the next painting? Amanda, is it you?
Yes, this is the one I've prepared.
Good. Now, I've got 1 or 2 questions for Amanda to guide us through this painting, so if you could all pay attention, we can get started. Brian! Thank you. Now, as you can see, it's a pre-Raphaelite painting, so we're talking 1880, 1890. And what can you tell us about this, and other pre-Raphaelite paintings for that matter, compared to what came before?
Well, there was very definitely a reaction against some of the earlier concerns. For example, the pre-Raphaelites didn't believe in the idea that it was important to be true to nature or realistic. This is a good example. It's by the painter Burne-Jones, completed in 1884, and it shows a lot about his philosophy of painting.
OK, and what was it exactly?
Well, in his own words... Is it okay if I use my notes?
Yes, of course.
He said that a painting should be a beautiful romantic dream of something that never was, never will be, in a land that no one can define or remember, only desire.
So, in other words, the very opposite of realism. No practical lessons for modern industrial societies or whatever.
Yes, exactly. And this painting is in many ways very typical of Burne-Jones. In fact, his wife later said it was his most distinctive work, the one that really summed up what he thought.
OK, tell us about the story it tells.
It's called King Cophetua and the Beggar Maid, and it's based on an old legend from early medieval times about a king who falls in love with a beggar girl and finds that his love for her is greater than all his wealth and power.
Was it a well-known story?
Yes, most people knew it well, but only through reading Tennyson's poetry, in which he wrote about it, rather than from the original story.
So it's another example of what we were talking about earlier, the link between the Romantic movement in literature and the movements in art. Do go on.
In the painting, the artist imagines the king sitting at the girl's feet, gazing at her in adoration. Burne-Jones said he was determined that the king should look like a king and the beggar should look like a queen. And he had certain details, such as the crown and the maid's dress, specially made for him so that he could capture the detail. The setting has echoes of 15th century Italian art, particularly Mantegna and Crivelli, and it's all elaborately decorated with highly wrought textures and jewel-like colours. If you look at the clothing, you can see what I mean. The two characters in the background have got these rich flowing clothes, and there's the same richness in the king's flowing cloak.
So what is he trying to tell us about here? What about these anemones? Do they have any particular significance, do you think?
Yes. The maid is holding a bunch of anemones, and if you look closely, you can see that some of them have fallen on the steps by the king. The flowers are a symbol of unrequited love, and there's a lot of personal feeling in this painting, as there is in much of his work. At the time he was doing this, Burne-Jones had met and fallen in love with a girl called Frances Graham, but she then married someone else. So it's likely that the king represents Burne-Jones, and the queen represents Frances Graham. And the painting shows his feeling about losing the woman he loved.
Are there any other themes that the audience in 1884 would have recognised, apart from on this personal level?
Yes. To the general public, it would have had a completely different meaning, which they would have recognised quite easily. They would interpret the painting as being about the rejection of worldly wealth and the elevation of love above everything else. Yes,
absolutely. And that was a message that was very close to Burne-Jones's heart and was very relevant for late Victorian Britain. Well, thank you, Amanda. And now we'll move on to the next artist.
Such a teacher's pet.
Brian, that includes you.